This lesson is on adding and subtracting real numbers. We're going to do some addition and subtraction of some fractions and decimals now because obviously we're still going to be using those same sum, different difference rules, but now we also have, say, denominators that may or may not be common, etc. So when you add or subtract fractions, you need to have a common denominator. It doesn't have to be the least common denominator, it just makes it a lot easier. When you get to the end, you won't have to do as much reduction or simplification. So when you're looking for a least common denominator, I'm looking for my two denominators, which are the numbers on the bottoms of fractions, so it's numerators, denominators. I need my denominators to both go into a number. So if I look at 5 and 4, I look at number like 5 goes into 5, and 10, and 15, and 20, and 25, etc. And my number 4 goes into 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, etc. And what I'm looking for is the first time that they both go into the same number. So both 5 and 4 go into 20. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn 5 into 20 by multiplication. So you have to always use multiplication. So here I would take this times 4 to make it 20, which would mean this one also has to be times 4. So this fraction of 2/5 is now 8/20. And then I have to do the same thing to my second fraction. To turn 4 into 20, I'd multiply by 5. So I do that on the top and the bottom, so I get 3 times 5, which is 15, and 4 times 5, which is 20. So now I have a subtraction problem. And of course, with subtraction, I'm going to do my keep, flip, change. So I'm going to keep 8/20 the same sign. I'm going to change or flip that to plus and change that to negative. And now that I'm going to add these together, these are different signs, so I'm going to find the difference. Now when I find the difference, obviously I don't have to worry about the 20s. My answer will have a 20 on the bottom. So that's the 20 on the bottom just says that you have something that's broken up into 20 parts. My first one has 8 parts, my second one has negative 15 parts. So these are the two that I'm going to be combining together. So the difference between 8 and 15 is 7, and then the bigger of those signs is negative, so my answer is negative. So this is my final answer, negative 7/20. Of course, when you get to the end of a fraction question, you would make sure that you can't reduce it anymore to see if there's a number that goes into both 7 and 20, and this one does not have one. For my second one, this one is a little bit more complicated because I'm dealing with mixed numbers. So a mixed number is where you have a whole number and also a fraction. So you kind of have a choice. One easy way to do this is, because these have different signs, it's going to be more helpful to me. I am going to go ahead and turn these into improper fractions. So to turn into an improper fraction means there's no number out front. So I'm going to take -1 times 8 plus 5, basically. So 1 times 8 is 8, plus 5 is 13. So this is negative 13/8. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. 1 times 3, which is 3, plus 1 is 4/3. And now I'm going to treat it just like I did that first question. So I'm looking at 8 and 3, and I'm trying to find a number they both go into, and that number would be 24. So I started with 8 and said 8, 3 doesn't go into that, 16, 3 doesn't go into that, 24, 3 goes into that. So I'm going to take this times 3, and this times 3, which gives me negative 39 over 24. And on this one, I'm going to take it times 8 and times 8. So that's 32 over 24. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing I did before. It's already addition, so I don't need to keep, flip, change. I'm just going to combine negative 39 and positive 32. Because they're different signs, I find the difference, which is 7, and my bigger number is negative, so my answer is negative. And then over 24, and then of course I would check to see if I can reduce anything, and I can't, so my answer is done. For my third question, again, I'm going to turn these into improper fractions. So 4 times 5 is 20, plus 1 is 21/5. Keep the negative. And then 1 times 2 is 2, plus 1 is 3/2. And that's still subtraction. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and keep, flip, change. So now I've got a negative plus a negative. So on this one, we wouldn't have had to turn them into improper, but for the case of simplicity, we're just going to do it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a number that 5 and 2 go into, and that would be 10. So to turn 5 into 10, I multiply by 2, which means I multiply the top by 2, which gives me negative 42 over 10. And my second one, to turn 2 into 10, I multiply by 5. but I have to do it to the top and the bottom, which gives me negative 15 over 10. So again, now what I'm going to do is I'm looking at the 42 and the 15. They're the same sign, so I find the sum. So 42 plus 15 is 57. Still negative because they're both negative. Now, if it's okay to leave your answer as an improper fraction, then that's my final answer. If you have to turn an improper fraction back into a mixed number, it's basically division. So I'm going to put the 57 here. I'm not going to bring the negative up because that gets complicated. 10 goes into 57 5 times evenly. So 5 times 10 is 50 with 7 left over. And because I'm leaving it as a fraction, this is sort of my remainder. So when I turn this into a mixed number, I'm going to keep the negative on there. It's 5 because it went 5 times evenly with 7/10 left over. So that's how you would turn that into a mixed number if necessary. With decimals, basically the only rule here is just to line up the decimal place. So as long as you're lined up, you should be okay. But again, always be thinking of same sum, different difference. If it's subtraction, you're going to keep flip change first. So looking at this first one, I see that I have minus negative. So I'm going to keep flip change. These are now the same sign, so I'm just finding the sum. So I'm going to line them up, 5.2 plus 1.47. And of course, yes, you can use your calculator to help you, but I want you to learn how to do it for real also. So 0 plus 7 is 7, and notice I added a 0 as a placeholder. 2 plus 4 is 6, and then 5 plus 1 is 6, so my answer is 6.67. Then I always check my sign, both positive, so my answer is positive. For my second one, I have a negative plus a positive. Now these are different signs, so I'm going to find the difference. So when I'm finding the difference, I need to make sure that I put my bigger number on top. So that 10.7 is going to go on the top, and the 8.32 is going to go on the bottom so that it will work out when I subtract. Again, feel free to use your calculator for these, but I'm going to show you how to do it the real way, just so maybe a little refresher. I can't take 2 away from 0, so I'm going to borrow. So I have 10 minus 2, which is 8, 6 minus 3, which is 3, and then 10 minus 8, which is 2. So 2.38, and then I look back up here at my signs. My bigger number here is the 10.7, and that's positive, so my answer is positive 2.38, or 2 3/8. My last one here, I have a negative, and then minus a negative. Remember, whenever we have minus, we're going to keep flip change. So now I've got different signs. I'm going to find the difference. So when I subtract, remember, oops, I'm not going to worry about the negative. I'm going to keep that bigger number on the top. Oh, didn't need that extra 0. That's okay. And now I'm going to subtract these, and then at the end I'll go back and look at my signs. So forget about this one. 0 minus 9 doesn't work, so I'm borrowing. 10 minus 9 is 1. 2 minus 0 is 0. 4 minus 0 is 4. So the difference between these two values is 4.21, or 4 21/100. My bigger number is negative, and so my answer is negative. So negative 4 21/100 is my final answer for that question. Here's a few for you to try. For my first question, again, I have a negative, and then I've got a minus. So whenever I have a minus, immediately I'm going to keep flip change. These now have the same sign, which means I'm finding the sum. So if I'm adding them together, I need to line up those decimal places. I'm going to add that extra 0 in as a placeholder. 0 plus 5 is 5. 6 plus 4 is 10. So I'm going to put the 0 here and carry the 1. 4 plus 1 plus 3 is 8. Now those are both negative, and my answer is negative. So same sum, keep the common sign. For my second question, I've got mixed numbers, and we have mixed numbers. It's easier to turn them into improper fractions. So 5 times 6 is 30, plus 5 is 35/6. Keep the negative. My second one is 2 times 3, which is 6 plus 1, so 7/3. These are different signs, so I'm going to find the difference. On this one, my common denominator, the number that 6 and 3 both go into, is 6. So my first fraction's okay exactly how it is. But my second fraction, I'm going to have to multiply this by 2 to make it 6, which means my new question looks like negative 35/6 plus 14 sixths. So now common denominator, I can go ahead and combine the numerators. Negative 35 and 14. These are different signs, so I'm finding the difference between 14 and 35, which is 21. Bigger number's negative, so my answer is negative. Make sure you keep it over 6. Again, if an improper fraction is okay, you're almost okay on this one. Unfortunately, with this one, we do have to reduce because 3 goes into the top and the bottom. So whenever you have a number that goes into both the top and the bottom, it's good to reduce. So I'm going to divide out that 3, which gives me negative 7 over 6 divided by 3 is 2. Now, if an improper fraction is okay, it's negative 7 halves. If not, 2 goes into 7 3 times evenly with 1 left over. So I would take either negative 3.5 or negative 7 halves. Either one is the correct answer. For my last one, I'm going to keep flip change. So I have a negative plus a negative. Some of you just sort of understand that the 1 is a whole number and then 1/5 is a fraction and they're the same sign, so my final answer is going to be negative 1 1/5. But for those of us who struggle a little bit more with fractions, one thing I can do is say that negative 1 is like negative 1 over 1. And I want it to have a denominator of 5, which gives me negative 5 over 5. So I can rewrite this as negative 1 over 5 plus negative 5 over 5, which gives me negative 6 over 5, which is okay as an answer, or as a mixed number, 5 goes into 6 one time with 1 left over, and of course it's negative because it was negative up here. Either way.